Hello and welcome to this week's BizSmart Lunch and Learn webinar. Our weekly webinars are aimed to provide advice and share knowledge amongst business owners, and this is part of our service to our Smart Room members. If you're not already a member or a BizSmart client or would like to access our archive of webinars, then please visit our website biz-smart.co.uk and go to the Smart Room page. Our host joining me today is BizSmart Select member Stu Avis. Before we start our webinar, can I ask you all to post any questions that you may have for Stu, and he'll answer them all at the end of the session. Thank you, Stu. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Okay, so the topic for this afternoon is help I need a designer. And this has already come about from a whole range of conversations I've been having this year with various people. And not many people can know what to expect from a designer, and not many people kind of understand the process. So what I thought we'd do this afternoon is kind of look at that. Because actually there will be moments in your professional life that you may well want to employ the services of a designer. So this is really just to give you a helping hand in thinking through what to look for, who to look for, things to kind of have conversations about. And then I want to give you an insight into the creative process, but I also just kind of want to give you a few top things that actually designers, a few pet hates. I gathered a few designers around a table and had a bit of discussion about things that we really annoy, that really annoy us. So I've kind of forewarned is forearmed. So this is kind of what I'm going to cover today. So we're going to be looking at why use a designer in the first place, what to look for in a designer, so 10 top issues to discuss with the designer. And then 5 things most designers hate. Oh, brilliant, thank you. And then the insight into the creative process, and then there'll be a one-page summary at the end. So why use a designer in the first place? Well, we are the experts. It's what we do best. And so while you may be able to find someone you know who's maybe played on a computer or done a little bit of graphic design work at some level, actually one of the reasons you use any professional is because it's actually the thing that they're really good at. The second thing, actually, if you know that someone's covering off the design side of things, then it frees you up to do the thing that you do really well too. So you're using people so they're doing what they do best so that you can do what you do best. The third thing is actually, as designers, we have experience to bring to the table. So experience across a range of sectors, across a range of clients, across a whole range of different projects. And we bring all of that experience to the table when we come to tackle a particular project. And we can kind of see the wood for the trees and hopefully broaden your horizons a little bit. Collaboration is really important. No man should be an island. So collaboration is really critical in actually helping you grow your network, and again freeing you up to kind of do what you do best. I've said we can bring insight and we can challenge assumptions. I've got a couple of great stories that I'll share over the course of the webinar. But actually, just because you've always done something in a certain way doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way of doing it. So actually, using our experience and our expertise, we can challenge those assumptions and help you and help bring you insight so that so you can grow your business and kind of really do what you do even better than you're doing it now. And actually, we can also liaise with our professionals, so for web designers or for marketers and printers as well. So we can give you the right format of design to give to the right person. Because different formats need different things and different styles and different even types of graphics. So we can liaise with that, with all those as well. So we can kind of bring all of that to the table. So that's kind of just 6 basic reasons why you should use a designer. So here are 6 questions to ask yourself. So let's make the assumption that you need a piece of design work done. You've decided that you're going to approach 2 or 3 designers. Unless you already kind of know one, you've got a good relationship with them. But let's say, for the point of argument, that you're going to look at maybe getting a piece of design work done, and you're going to approach 2 or 3 people. So these are things that you can ask yourself when going through that kind of selection process. So 1, have they got the right skill set and expertise? There's no point in using a web developer if that's what they're specific at, if you want lots of print work done. And likewise, actually, if you want lots of print work, if you want some web design done, don't use someone who's only got experience in the print side of things. So even though there's design, and they may be very good in one type of design, have they got the right skill set, the right expertise to deliver what it is that you want them to do? Have they got the experience working in a sector? Now that doesn't necessarily track, but actually have they got track record? It is an important thing to take into consideration because they may well know things about the sector that can help you, but equally bring someone in who maybe hasn't got that experience in that sector. They may bring something fresh because they're not maybe tarred with kind of the same brush or maybe into a certain way of doing things. So it's an important thing to consider, but it's certainly not a deal breaker as far as I'm concerned. Have they got a strong portfolio? I.e., are they starting out? Have they got, do you like the kind of designs that they've got on their website or that they sort of bring to a meeting? Do you go, actually, overall, I really like what you're doing, or actually doesn't kind of feel right? Have they got what you consider to be a strong portfolio of work? Do they ask the right questions? One of the critical things that I've often found when we've being a second or third generation designer is actually often previous designers have not asked the right questions to really get the best out of the project. And I'm almost sick of hearing, no one's asked me that question before. And for me, it's a really obvious question. So are they asking the right questions? And that's one of the reasons why we're going through this top 10 thing in a little bit, to help you think through the questions that if your designer isn't asking you, you should be telling them the information regardless. And it's all about the design brief. So do they get you? Are your values aligned? That, for me, I think, is the most critical one. There is nothing worse, and I'm sure you may well identify this yourself. There's nothing worse than working with someone who you just don't get and doesn't get you, because it's just frustrating. And you're constantly trying to work out a way of doing things. You end up dreading phone calls and all those kind of things. The best projects that we've worked on are where our values and our clients' values are perfectly aligned, and it becomes an absolute joy. So if you're working with someone, even if they maybe haven't got a strong portfolio or they haven't got lots of experience, do they get you and do you get them? It's that kind of connection that's really important, and for me that is the deal breaker in all of those things. And secondly, actually, do they challenge your assumptions? Are they not someone who goes, so okay, so you want a 2-page A5 flyer, okay, that's what I'll deliver. And a quick story on that is we were asked to deliver a 2-page A5 flyer for a client, and when I challenged her and said, well, why do you want this? She said, well, it's what we've always done. I said, okay, so how many flyer campaigns have you done? Well, we've done 5 of them so far. Well, that's good. So how many of them have worked? None of them. So why do you want a 6th campaign? I don't know, it's just what we've always done. So I suggested an alternative way of working that actually brought quite a lot of business into, that actually won her quite a lot of clients. So I wasn't just going to go, okay, this is what you've asked for. So don't just work with someone who's a yes person, but that they will challenge your assumptions. So those are kind of, for me, I think the 6 things that you need to be asking when going through your selection process. And there are others, but for me, those are the kind of top 6. So moving on to the top 10 issues to discuss with your designer. So either these are things that you need to be raising or you should be expecting your designer to be asking you. So this is now to the point where you've made your selection, you're sitting down to kind of take a more detailed design brief. They've given you their quote, you've kind of agreed all of this sort of thing. In principle. So these are the things to kind of discuss. And if when your designer isn't asking them, raise these issues, because every designer needs to know the following things. So here they are in summary. What do you want? Why do you want it? Who's your audience? Who is your competition? What do you want to say? What's the background? What don't you want? What boundaries are there? What's your budget? And what's your time frame? So we're going to go through those 10 things in slightly more detail. So what do you want? Be really clear about what you want. What's the scope of the project? have you got any particular preferences in terms of style, in terms of colour, in terms of a range of things? But be really clear about what you want, but be willing to consider alternative options. If your designer says, well, actually, have you thought about doing it this way? Or instead of using a 4-page A5, why not actually use a 4-page 210 by 210? It'll give you more space. It will actually create a better look and a better feel and come across better. Or actually, have you thought instead of about doing a flyer campaign, do an email campaign? All those kind of things. So be willing to consider alternatives, but be very clear about what you want, because there's nothing more frustrating as a designer, and I'll probably say this quite a bit actually, is about people. You get to a meeting and, well, I'm not really sure what I want. I know I want to grow my business. So so there are moments where actually we can step in and we can, okay, well, let's look at what you're doing, and let's look at and let's help you decide what you want. Let's inform you, make those decisions. But be really clear about what you want, and if you're not, ask for help. Ask me, can you advise me? What would you say? What do you think is the best thing that I could do? So if you're not sure, ask, because like I say, use the experience and the expertise that's in the room. So why do you want it? So many times I've sat down with a client, well, why do you want it? I don't know. I do. I was okay. So what's the purpose of this project? Well, I want to tell people about myself. Okay, well, that's fine, but we need to drill deeper. So I'm just begin to think through, well, what's the purpose of this? What is this piece of design work, whether it's a website, an email campaign, a single flyer, a business card, a logo? What's the purpose of that piece of design? What do you want it to achieve? And also, what constitutes success as well? So actually give yourself something to measure it by. That's really important, and that needs to be discussed in the and can raise it as a discussion point actually for a designer. If you have certain expectations and I don't meet them, then even if I think I've done a good job, you'll see it as a failure. So be very clear about the parameters and the success. Also, where does this piece of design, whatever it might be, fit into your overall strategy? Is it something that you just thought of on a whim? Is it integral to a growth strategy? Where does it fit into that overall marketing plan that you should have? And if it doesn't, A, is it worth doing? And B, if it isn't, then where does it fit into the plan? And then also, again, be willing to consider alternatives as well. So what do you want? Why do you want it? And then the third thing that as a designer I need to know, so who are you talking to? Is this primarily for existing clients and people who know you and you've got a good relationship with them? Is it people who have never heard of you before? So that's really important because the tone of voice will be different. The design may well change depending on the audience. Also, how long have you had a presence in that marketplace? Where are they? Are they, do they mostly read print? Are they always online and everything print-based goes in the bin? What spaces do they have it? What social channels can we use? And also, how crowded is this marketplace? So as a designer, I want to know who it is that you're talking to, because I'm not designing for you. I'm designing for the people that you're talking to. And that's a really critical thing. So yes, you have to be really proud of the piece of work that you're sending out to your clients, but for me, it's more important to know that actually what I'm designing is going to work for the people that you are talking to, because that's the thing that's going to grow your business. That's the thing that's going to make the impact. But if you might think it's beautiful and lovely, but if it's not scratching where your clients itch, it's just kind of art, really, instead of design. So there we go. So number 4, who was your competition? So direct and indirect. Where are they based? Is it national? Is it geographic? Is it social? Is it digital? Is it, where are they? Where is that competition? What are they doing and not doing? So how can you stand out and innovate? But also, are there things that actually you do need to fit into because people expect certain things from a particular industry or particular sector? So whilst there may be general trends that you might follow, actually, how can you stand out? How can you innovate? How do you compare with your competition? Again, as a designer, I need to know some of this stuff because the more information I have, the more on point the design will be, whatever it is, whether it's a flyer, a website, an email campaign, piece of copywriting, whatever it might be. So help me understand your competition. Help your designer understand your competition. And then what do you want to say? This may seem ridiculous, but we've got one website that we've been doing that we've had on the books for 2 years now, and we did design work in the first 3 weeks, and they have still not got content to us, which is an exceptionally frustrating process for everyone. So what content have you got? What overall message do you want to deliver? Have you got 50 words or 5,000 words? Are you writing the content, or is someone else? If you're writing the content, is it already written? If it's not already written and you're writing it, allow a long time for that. If someone else is writing it, yes, you've got to pay some money for that, but actually there will be deadlines and accountability structure built into that. And all you do is kind of manage that process. And a good designer should know some good copywriters. So think about the words. That's really important. And what images have you got? Have you got a series of stock images or some good or some images that a photographer has taken? What images have I got to play with? And where have you got the images from? There's a number of people have sent me images, and I know they come from Google. You cannot use them. You don't have copyright for them. I know of 2 or 3 businesses that have gone under because they have used Google images or images from Google, and 1 or 2 stock houses have charged them thousands and thousands of pounds. So have you got copyright for the images that you have got access to? It's really important. So what's the history in the background? So have you tried this before? Like my client that I had, she tried 5 fly campaigns before and she wanted to do it again, even though the 5 hadn't worked. So for me to know that she'd done 5 and that she wanted a 6 was important information, so I could challenge that. Well, if they've not worked, why would you want number 6? So if it did work, why? If it didn't work, why not? You may not be able to give the answer for that. But it's important to raise it. And actually, why are you doing this now? Why now, not 6 months ago? Or why now, not in 6 months' time? So what is it about now? Is it because you've got the budget for it? That may be really important. And also, where have you been? What's your story and what's your future? As a designer and someone who's generally quite nosy, I quite like knowing the story of people and their businesses because it informs my design, but it also then informs your future as well. So I will ask lots of kind of nosy questions as a designer. Not every designer will. Some may not be comfortable with that. You may not be comfortable with that. But understanding the history and the flow and where this piece fits into the story is really important. So number 7, what don't you want? It's be really clear about what you don't want. You may not know this. It may just be a gut thing. You see something, I'm not sure I want that. But if you say, don't give me purple while I'm walking out the door, or whatever it might be, so be really clear about certain parameters. I only styles to avoid. I don't want this typeface because everyone else is using it. And have you got any pet hates? We all have them. And the last thing I want to do is design something that I think is great, and you go, I hate that. I always have done. But tell us what you don't want as much as what you do. But also, if you don't like something, you may not be able to understand why, but be honest and say, I can't put my finger on what I don't like about it. So can we try something else? Or it may be that we strip out all the colour. Because back in the early days of design, I did a logo, and I knew I was spot on with the logo, and I presented it to the client. I don't like that. And I was genuinely shocked. So 3 months later, still working through a whole range of different projects, a whole different range of versions. And I came back to the first one. It turned out that she just didn't like the blue. It was too dark. She loved everything else about it, but all she said was, I don't like it because of the blue. I lightened it. She fell in love with it. So be really clear about what you don't want and why you don't like something, if that's possible. It's not always. I appreciate that. So what boundaries are in place? Are there any no-go areas or restrictions? So are there things you cannot say? Are there things you cannot do? Are there brand guidelines in place? Because if there are, we need to know them. That's really, really, really important. Not many companies do, but some do. Have you got your logo, your fonts, your palette available If you've had your design, your logo professionally designed, have you got all of that stuff available to us? Because that's really important, and it gives us all our colours, it gives us our fonts, it gives us that base to work from. And also, actually, are there certain things that have to be on the work? So financial searches, there often has to be a little bit of wording in the bottom of everything they do. If there's certain things that need to be on there, or certain icons, then let us know what they are ahead of time. It just makes life a lot easier moving forwards. Number 9, what's your budget? Talk about money early on. Be upfront about it. I hate talking about money. I'm not comfortable with it, and I've been doing this for 7 years, and I don't like it. I never will. But try to have that conversation early on. You may not know what a realistic budget for, let's say, an e-commerce website is, but be aware of what you are and are not willing to spend. So because you will know what you can afford, and you will say, okay, I cannot spend more than this. And okay, well, actually, what you want is not doable for that, but let's work with what you do have. So be aware of what you are and are willing to spend. If you know roughly how much things might cost, then set a realistic budget. But it's more important to be aware of what you can afford and what you will and will not spend. It comes down to a value thing as well. And are there any payment terms that need mentioning as well? Be just upfront about all the money stuff, because it just makes life more comfortable for everyone later on. So there we go, that's that one. And the final one is, what's your time frame? How urgent is this piece of work? When do you want it delivered by? I have had people phone me up within 12 hours of going to an expo and going, we've got no marketing materials, we want 3 flyers, 2 banners, and it needs to be printed and we need it delivered by lunchtime tomorrow. And you go, not convinced that's possible. It just isn't possible. So actually think ahead of time about things like that, but set a realistic time frame. Discuss with your designer. I need this by this point. Is that doable? Yes or no? And if it is really urgent, and sometimes you do suddenly realise that you've run out of something and you need something in 24 hours time, and you need a simple piece of design work done, you may have to pay slightly over the odds for that. And that's just the way it goes. Not always. Some designers will, some designers won't. But also take into account print times, because if you've got an event in a week's time, you need to allow generally 2 to 3 days minimum to get the work printed and delivered. So take that into consideration in your time frame as well. So get the work done earlier. It gives you more breathing space. So that's your kind of top 10 things. So what do you want? Why do you want it? Who's your audience? Competition, content, background, what you don't want, any restrictions or boundaries, budget and time frame. So other things to talk about, lines of communication. How will you best communicate? Is there a tool like Basecamp that you use, or is it just by phone, or by text, or by email? Who's going to manage a project? Who has responsibility for sign-off? Are there other stakeholders who may need input into a piece of creative? Set expectations from the outset, because it's really important. The more upfront everyone is about everything, the easier the project should, in theory, be. So 5 things most designers say. I got a bunch of us around the table, we had lots of good food, and it was great. And these are the 5 things that collaboratively we think these are things that kind of annoy us most. So 1, I don't know what I want, but I'll know when I see it. We must hear that every week. So again, be clear about what you want. Have some frame of reference. You may not know exactly what you want, but you'll probably have some idea if you think about it. Give us something to work with. It's very interesting. I want a logo, that's all I know. Well, and it's my job as a designer to get some of that out of you, but it is frustrating. I don't know what I want, but I know when I see it. Because then when we deliver something and you go, I don't like it, you probably don't know why you don't like it. And we don't know what's wrong with it because we haven't got parameters. So give the project some clay to work with, please, if that's possible. Not always, but it should be possible on most levels. 2, I like this, but let me pass it around my colleagues, friends, bloke in the pub and my pet dog. Design by committee is a universal pet hate of most designers. So there's no problem in having multiple stakeholders. So let's say you've got a board of directors that all need to approve something. That's fine, but let us designers know who, that actually there is there will be 3 or 4 people who will all have their input. Because actually, I will certainly change my design process to fit in with that. So be clear at the outset who the decision makers are. Does the decision decision rest with you? Or actually, is it your boss and you simply being commissioned to source this? So be very clear in the outset. Multiple stakeholders will increase timescale because everyone needs to sit and think about it and sleep on it, and you're going to add 2 or 3 weeks to a project, probably. But also, if you are the primary stakeholder decision maker, but you do want to get some feedback from friends, family, colleagues, people who know you well, that's fine. But if you think it's right, it probably is. Okay? Take other people's considerations and opinions into account, but don't be swayed because it's just going to make life complicated for everybody and frustrating for the 2 of you. So I've got 500 quid and I want a full rebrand and an e-commerce website by the week's end. Is this okay? Again, it's about timescales and budget. What are you willing to, if there is an urgent piece of work, what are you willing to compromise on? It's okay to not know how much things cost. We're fine with that. But again, like I said, be aware of how much you can afford. And also what you think is good value for money. Is how you will know that intuitively somewhere deep down. So that's, often I kind of hear those sort of things. I've got this amount, can I have this? And you go, well, actually, no, you can't, but you can have this instead. Is that okay? If you take what I've had this week, if you take this project on for free, I can give you loads of business later on. Don't say that, please. Our work does have a value, and respect that. Just like you expect your clients to value the work that you do, we appreciate it when people value the work that we do too. Let us decide who to give discounts to. We're not means. Most of us will give discounts to startups and to charities and to people who we get on with and we want to help, and they haven't got the budget, and that's fine. But I had a client a couple of years ago now who I know charged 200 quid an hour and we charge 50, and he asked me for a discount on my prices, and I said, well, would you expect someone to ask it, and how would you feel if someone asked you for discounts? I'd be really offended. So I just looked at him and he went, actually, Kate, you've made your point. And actually we did some good work together and are still doing some good work to this day. So it's just, I'll leave that as it is. And then my wife's sister's uncle has a nephew twice removed who designs logo and paint. Is it okay? I would be a rich man if I had £1 for every time someone has said something like that, although maybe not to quite that detail. We don't mind working with externally designed material, but is it of a usable quality in a range of uses and sizes that actually we can take and use? And bear in mind that actually if you don't have your logo in a reasonable size, or it is you did it because of budgetary concerns right at the start, and it is in a very basic format, and you now want to use it in a different way, we might have to redraw it, and there might be a cost to that. So just take that into consideration. So there are more. Those, I guess, are the 5 top sort of things that really kind of bug us designers. So I just really want to quickly take you through a breakdown of a logo, or as my client when I delivered it said, how the heck did you do that? So it all comes down to the brief, understanding the client, the audience, their why, their what, their ambition, what it is we want. So in this case, the client is a church, fairly trad-looking church on the outside. It's not on the inside, and you can see their logo on the top there, the blue writing with the yellow cross. So I know this church very well. I know the guys who run it. So I knew they were a contemporary community church based in Bromsgrove. They did not want Christian imagery like a cross in the logo. And any good logo needs to reflect the mission, the values, the purpose of the church. So what I'm going to do now is take you through the thought process that goes behind every single piece of design work I do, whether it's a logo, a website, a business card, a flyer. It's the same thought process, and it's trying to say, what does this element communicate and why? So once we've taken the brief, I then look at typography. How does the words render out in a whole range of different typefaces that fit the broad sort of, modern, trendy kind of community kind of thing? So I normally set between 10 and 12 typefaces. That's just a selection of 5. Well, so then I then take my top 2 and I start playing around with them, and that's what I came out with. So the main typeface is modern and clean, but it's got those softer rounded edges, so it kind of softens the whole thing. But also the secondary typeface, the community church bit, is modern and clean, but it's readable, but it's also in a font that we can use on websites because it's a Google font. So I'm already thinking about how could this logo be used and take the qualities of that and put it into other contexts that still then relate to the logo and the primary artwork that we're doing. So once we've done that, we then look at colour. So as you may well know, different colour means different things. So you've got blue, purple, orange and green, and they all mean different things. They all have different connotations. We may not, we don't necessarily know those obviously, but I think we often intrinsically, instinctively know, that certain colours mean certain different things, and we take certain meanings from them. But I didn't want one colour. Fortunately, the word New Song has 7 colours in it, or 7 letters, and so does a rainbow. And if you know anything about the kind of about Christianity at all, the rainbow is a very powerful symbol for Christians. It symbolises the faith and the promises of God. They're also bright, energetic, and vibrant colours. So for me, I wanted to get something, because I couldn't use a traditional Christian logo, like icon, like a cross. I wanted something that reflected very powerfully, something that Christians would get, but also colours that would actually really speak of the vibrancy and community and the energy that's in the church. So obviously we can't use any kind of the standards, but they didn't say we couldn't use a triangle. Now I was quite proud of this one, if you even say so myself, because there are Father, Son and Holy Spirit. So you've got the Trinity, but also body, mind and soul. And it's about actually working with the whole person, not just one aspect of them. So how can you get a triangle, it's very angular, into something that's quite rounded and quite nice and quite soft, which the word New Song is? Well, what I did is I created a triangular grid, and I carved up the lettering into 180 something individual triangular shapes. There is not one single shape there that is the same as any other. So everything is unique. So the whole lettering, whole word is made up of lots of triangles that represent a trinity. They're all joined together in unity to kind of make each other whole. But that doesn't look very good. So this is actually what we came up with in the end. So every shape has a gradient, and every gradient is fractionally different. There is not one shape in that logo that is the same as any other. So the gradients symbolise a journey of faith that we're all on. It symbolises variety, coming together, community and family, and actually the gradients generally travel from darkness into light into middle as well. So again, symbolising kind of lots of journey and all that kind of thing. But also, because it's a traditional looking church, we've got loads of stained glass windows. So it also kind of represents stained glass window side of things as well. So heritage and the history of the church. We're celebrating our 200th anniversary soon, but also the nature of faith, that we don't often see things clearly, but that's why we have faith. So that logo took about 22 hours to design. So the briefing, the concept, the typography, the palette. So when someone says, oh, I don't want to pay more than 50 quid for a logo, that's when it just, hopefully you see not only the creative process, but the value of why a logo can cost a lot of money. Now, at 22 hours at 50 quid an hour, that's over £1,000. I would never charge that for a logo. I'm not that stupid. But we charge the church £500 for that because of the work and love and the care and attention that went into it. And they were happy to pay it because they know, if they knew and understood the process. So when someone does want a logo, or when he wants a logo and a designer says it's going to be this, try to understand the creative process, because it may be more complicated than you think. So just in summary then, because I know I've gone on a little bit, be clear about what you do and you don't want. Be clear about your expectations of the project. What is it you want this thing to achieve? Be clear on what you are and are not willing to spend. It's about affordability and about value, not necessarily about budgets. The more information you can give, the better. Obviously, only work with a designer that you get and who gets you. That's really, really, really important. And finally, be willing to be challenged and think outside the box. And last but no means least, enjoy the creative process. So I hope that has helped. I hope that's giving you a summary kind of things to think about. And are there any questions?
Great, thank you very much, Stu, for that. You do have some questions. The first one is from Claire, and she asks, where do I get legal images from at a reasonable cost?
Okay, there are loads of good sites on there. I use Shutterstock because I think the images are very reasonable in terms of how much they cost, and they're royalty free, so you can use them as many times as you like. There's iStock, there's ThinkStock, there's loads of other stock houses, and they all have slightly different kind of payment sort of structures and all that kind of stuff. But you cannot beat getting a photographer in to get really good bespoke imagery, but obviously there's a cost for that. But we use Shutterstock because they're very good.
Okay, thank you. Another question from Ian. He says, thank you for that. I'd just like to ask, do I own the copyright to my work?
Now, this is a very, very interesting question. And reason, I've been confronted with this issue this year actually, where a client wants to move away to us and to do a new website, and their designer would not release the designs until they've paid him a copyright release fee. So I did some background research, because I've always said, well, of course you own the copyright, you paid for it, it's yours. Legally, the designer owns the copyright because they are the one involved in the creative process. They own the intellectual property. Even though you have paid for it, legally, they own the copyright. So if you want to guarantee that you own the copyright, you need to ask your designer to a clause in the contract or in the payment terms, whatever it might be, say, actually, you are the ones that own the copyright. Because if they have put that in a document, then you own it. There are legal forms out there which you can sign. They actually, they can be legally ratified, but that's expensive. If you're not sure, ask your designer. Most designers I know go, of course you own the copyright, it's not a problem. But there are one or two who may be quite touchy about it. But so even on the quotes that I send out, I always say as one of the notes is, you will own the copyright to this. It's yours, it's not mine. You paid for it, it's yours. So different designers will have different takes on it, so just check. But legally, the creative person actually owns the intellectual property for that thing in a legal standing.
Okay, thank you for that.
Right.
Another question from Alex this time. Where do I find a good designer from?
Well, you can always go to me, but you can use Yell or whatever it is these days, but generally find someone that you know, like, and trust. So Business Network, if you're part of a good business networking group, that's going to be a great point of call. Equally, if you know other business owners, ask them, I really like your website, who designed that? I love your logo, who designed that? So ask people, because word of mouth is really, really, really important. Yes, you can use Google and Google creative designers, Bromsgrove or wherever it is, but you don't necessarily know who you're going to get. So I would say use people that you know who can recommend you and point in the right direction first. If you draw a blank, then Google will be your best friend. But just be really careful about the kind of designers that you talk to. Okay. Just word of warning.
Thank you very much, Stu, for hosting today's webinar. I will send out a copy of the presentation and also Stu's contact details out to you shortly, so do please email him if you have any other questions. Just before we close, just a quick reminder, this webinar is part of our service to our Smart Room members. If you're not already a member or a BizSmart client and would like to access our archive of webinars, then please visit our website, biz-smart.co.uk, and go to the Smart Room page. That's the end of today's webinar. Thank you all for listening, and we hope you can join us again very soon.